Yeah, so we're gonna get right into it. I know you got moves to make. For the viewers who may not recognize you, let them know who you are and definitely where you from.
Sure. So my name is Aaron Phillip Clark. I'm a native of Los Angeles, though I've lived in North Carolina and Philadelphia as well. I am a novelist who originally started out as a screenwriter and attempted to go that route. I realized that I actually like to write prose more, and I found that fiction was more fulfilling. And so I pivoted over to writing fiction, and I've written 7 books so far. The latest being a co-written novel with Curtis 50 Cent Jackson called The Accomplice, which came out September 3rd.
Wow, that's dope, man. That's dope. Now I can ask you, when did you really like develop this passion for writing? Are you the first writer in your family, or does it kind of run in your blood? Or
Well, let's see. I would say probably third grade. I think third grade is when I really kind of saw myself as being able to create stories. And for a long time, I thought I would be like a comic book writer. I like to draw a lot. I was really deep into visual art, um, and I figured that was the path I was going to go. But as I started to progress more with the writing, I had a summer school teacher who really encouraged me and allowed me to spend a whole summer during summer school writing like a graphic novel. And so I would do the drawings. Then he would say, okay, this is cool. Give me another chapter next week. And so I just kind of kept doing it until I realized, like, oh, this is actually I put together a story, and there's visuals and everything. So I said, well, that wasn't too hard, So I just kind of kept at it. And that's when I kind of thought, okay, well, what about screenwriting, filmmaking? And so I had gone to film school, which was the first year was North Carolina School of the Arts, which later became UNC School of Filmmaking. And so I went there for a year. And then that summer I made a movie with my friends. And that was kind of what launched this whole thing of me going into filmmaking and storytelling.
wow, that's very inspiring. Now I can ask you, is it a significant difference between like trying to write a comic book versus writing a book to writing a script or screenwriting, I should say?
I would say writing like a comic or graphic novel is close to writing screenwriting because it's still kind of a script, and then I can go back and do the drawings, and kind of have it written out like that. It's kind of like the same thing if you were doing like an Audible. They look more like scripts, and so if you're doing just a audio story, it's kind of the same thing. Writing a novel is different in the sense that there's more. I think there's more burden on me, so I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to describe this character drinking from a coffee cup? There's a little bit more there. Screenwriting is slug lines that are very to the point, but at the same time have to be interesting. So it's a tricky way of writing because less is more, but at the same time, whatever's there needs to pack a punch, so that the person reading the script can really visualize almost like a TV show or movie in their head.
Okay, okay. I appreciate you breaking that down. Now you actually a writing instructor for UCLA. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So I started teaching in 2021 with UCLA, but prior to that, I had taught English. So I taught English in North Carolina and here in Los Angeles. And then I also was an ESL teacher for a little bit. And so when I published Under Color of Law in 2021, which is the first in my Trevor Finnegan series, I was told about the UCLA extension program. And so I said, oh, let me check this out. So I applied, and then took a little while. And then they got back to me and said, oh, we would love for you to teach. And I've been teaching with them ever since. But it's very fulfilling. I mean, for me, it gives me balance to be able to um, work with writers who are up and coming and it gets me out of my own little, creative world, and I can hear other people's stories and workshop and tell them about my experiences and give back. Because I think in my master's program, I didn't get a lot of that. So I didn't know how to get an agent. I didn't even know how to write a query letter, to send out. So all that I had to figure out myself. My master's program was mainly theory, and we had to write a thesis, but that was it. Like once you wrote it, they didn't tell you, okay, this is what you should do next. It was like, oh, good, you wrote your book, and that's that. So for me, when students come to me with questions, I give them answers that actually are going to help them hopefully chart a path for themselves moving into publishing.
Wow, that's real cool. That's real cool. Big shout out to UCLA, man. That's definitely one of the most, recognized universities in the world, man. And I know they heavy on the film too. So
Oh yeah.
that's great. Right, you're in the right place. Now let me see. Now I wanted to ask you about this. Um, it says that you were a former LAPD police recruit. Now I know a lot of your themes deal with like law enforcement. If you could just talk about, going through that process and how it has affected you creatively.
Yeah, so I entered the academy in 2014. And during that time, I had been teaching, I had already been a professor. So part of my reason for going in was I had gone to my cousin's graduation. So she's in law enforcement as well with LAPD. And so I was talking to some sergeants, and they were asking, "Oh, what's your background?" So I told them, I said, "Look, I'm an English teacher. Basically, I was teaching like at two universities at the time. English teachers, even on the professorial level, don't get paid a whole lot of money." And so they said, well, you don't have to be like a street cop forever. There's all these jobs and things. And so I said, "Oh, really?" And they said, "Yeah, like, we need people in communications. We need people in the chief's office. You can write, you can do this." And so I said, "Okay, I'll check it out." So I applied thinking I would never get a call. Because I was thinking like, why would they want a, English professor? Like it just didn't make sense. But I applied, and then I kept getting calls. So every time they would call me, I would go. And then I took the test, which wasn't that hard, and before I knew it, they were like, "Okay, well, this is the day you report." So I was okay, I'll see how this goes. You know what I mean? Um, and for me, I was thinking like it came on the heels of uh, the brother in New York, Eric Garner, who had just had been choked, by those officers, had been choked to death. And so for me, I was thinking, well, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe this is where I could make a difference. But once I got in there, I saw that the machine had been so structured in a way that if you were a outlier or you saw things differently, that was not necessarily rewarded. And so really, they have a saying in there that was like, it says, "All I see is a bunch of individuals." So the idea that they really want you to be an individual, you kind of just need to do what people are telling you to do. So by having an environment like that, there's really no room for other ideas at all. You know what I mean? And I felt like once I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, if this is where I'm supposed to be, I'll keep doing it. But if not, I need a sign. So we were training, and on this particular day, I landed funny when we were doing like I think we were scaling a beam or something. And I felt like a little pop in my back. And at first I thought, oh, I'll take some Tylenol or whatever. It's cool. But it kept getting progressively worse to the point where it had tightened up. And then they noticed and they said, "Oh, what's going on, Clark? You can't run." And, "What's going on with the push-ups?" And I said, "Oh, I can't feel nothing back there." So they ended up sending me, to the city doctors and all this stuff. And so it got to the point where they wanted me to take, pain medication, and they wanted me to do the cortisone shot and all this stuff. And I talked to my drill instructor, and he said, you really don't have to do that. Like, you, at some point, he said, you might have a family. At this time I was single, I didn't have kids. So he's like, you might have a family, you want to be able to pick up your kid. He's like, you start with those shots, it's like, it doesn't fix the problem. It just makes it so you don't feel it, but you still get damaged. And so he basically was like, that's not, you don't have to go that route. Like, he recognized that there was something else I was supposed to do. And so I said, okay, I appreciate that. And that was it. So I basically said, you know what, I'm gonna go make sure my back is good rather than moving forward with this. Um, but it did give me a gift in the sense that I saw behind the curtain. And so I saw how the department works. I saw the culture in a way that things started to make sense to me about why things are the way they are in terms of the community relationship with the police. It really started there. It starts in the academy, and it's the way they were training us. And so later, I was able to write about that in the first Trevor Finnegan book, Under Color of Law, and I really, show what was going on in the academy by having the victim in the story be academy recruit. Uh, so I think, if anything, that having that access is why I'm able to write about police in a way that I don't think a lot of writers are doing.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that. Now I can ask you because you kind of mentioned, being behind the curtain. Do you feel like, some of our favorite movies and TV shows is police shows? Do you feel like they get it right a lot of the times, or is it like totally different? Like you watching it, like, man, that would never happen.
No, like, I love Training Day. I love Denzel, but that's so far out, like, to a level where it's just, you know, it's entertainment, but it's not accurate. Even to the point where the way police officers often carry their firearms. So sometimes, it's a movie thing, but they point the barrel up. And so we had a training. I remember one of my classmates did that, and oh my gosh, he must have did 50 push-ups just right there. And I mean, you're talking about three instructors, drill instructors, screaming at the top of their lungs at him. And then finally they said, why did you do that? Because they said basically that when you point the barrel up, if it goes off, well, bullets come up and come down. So you're covered, they said you're covering all the classmates, everybody out here is in danger when you do that, right? If that was a real firearm, because we had training weapons. And so he said, oh, from the movies? And then they gave him another 50 pusher. I was like, you were better off saying nothing at all. But but that's the thing, it's like people look at that stuff and think, okay, this is how it is. And that's not, it's all movie stuff. So most of the time it's way off. Sometimes you can get it. There are some shows I will say that get it right because they have a consultant on there that is a police officer, usually. So NBC had Southland, which was a cop show, and they also had Boomtown, which was a cop show, two of my favorite shows. And then also you had Homicide: Life on the Street, which was set in Baltimore. And that was on, I felt like that was pretty accurate. And then also the way the cops are portrayed in The Wire as well is pretty accurate.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, The Wire was amazing. Now I gotta ask you about this as well because it is I guess a controversial topic about police brutality and stuff like that. Have you received any like pushback or criticism about some of the stuff that you're writing in the books, or not so much?
I mean, not from law enforcement. So most of within the crime fiction community, you have a lot of people who were law enforcement, who are some active, and then some who are retired. And the people who have read my books have been like, nah, you got it right. I think if anything, you know, when the book came out, I'm not so sure people understood what it was. And so, people who started to read it were, and these are folks who are, may not necessarily, who probably shy away from issues. You know what I mean? Who basically are reading because they want to escape. And that's not my books. My books don't really let you do that. It's going to wrestle with some stuff and make you think because, you know, Like that's the point, you know what I mean? So it's like, yes, I can write some escape fiction and a nice little mystery and stuff, and let that be it. But that's we have so much of that. I don't need to contribute to that. So I think if anything, the criticism came from people who thought it was that, and realized, oh wait, he's actually tackling serious issues here. And there's a price to pay for that. Sometimes the books don't do as well, um, you know, because people are wanting that escape fiction and they don't want to deal with that. But I will say that in the end, I have always felt like, if I get the opportunity to write or make a movie or do whatever, I'm going to make sure that there's meaning and purpose behind it. There's a lot of writers, but there's a lot of writers who are not necessarily writing about anything, you know? And my thing is, if we're doing it, let's do it to enhance the culture, and let's do it to have these conversations and let the book be a bridge for having these discussions. And that's always been my approach.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I appreciate you breaking it down. I appreciate you taking that stance. It's definitely needed. Now I can ask you this. Now, how did you connect with 50 Cent? He's an icon. He's a mogul. He's a rap star. How did y'all even meet?
Yeah, so that came about from his agent. So his agent had read Under Color of Law and had reached out to me, and say, hey, there's this fiction project. I work with Curtis. We're trying to do this thing. Do you mind talking to him? And at first I thought, no, this is not real. You're like, I was like, someone's playing a joke or something. I was like, I don't have time for this. So I said, I called my agent and I said, hey, I got this email. I said, do you mind looking into this? And so she looked into it. She said, no, it's legit. She's like, they really want to talk to you. So I said, okay. So we had the conversation, and then we both were had the same mindset about what the project could be. You know what I mean? And the ideas that we could tackle. And he already had an idea himself, in terms of the story and what he wanted in it, and his plans for it. And so I just listened. I was just listening to what he said, and really processing it and coming up with ideas. And then I took about a month, and really put together a solid outline of what I kind of saw the book being, and then started writing, and it basically went from there. And so, we have a second one coming, which will be volume 2. And, the idea was we wanted to do a heist story that went beyond just a bunch of dudes robbing something. You know what I mean? Like it needed to resonate a little bit more because we've seen that so much. And so the idea was to deliver something different, but at the same time, when I was writing, I wanted to make sure that it felt like it could exist in the Power universe, and still be part of that world. And so, I'd already watched Power, but I went back and like watched different episodes, and just to get a sense of the way that the characters operate, and kind of how that world existed. And I thought, okay, here's a book that could almost be dropped into that universe.
Yeah, yeah. Power is amazing, man. Now I can ask you this. Have y'all had any discussions or any thoughts about doing like a TV series or a movie, like a spinoff of the project that y'all just completed?
Oh yeah, I mean, Curtis is gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's without a doubt. So yeah, all that's in the works. So he's gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He's been a part of some of the best shows in the last 10 years, if not
Some of
longer.
the most
Movies as
successful.
well.
Even though I
Yeah,
think they don't give him his props on that, but at one time I think he had more shows on air or in development than Norman Lear. And so, I think that it's one of those things where because of the type of shows that come out of G Unit TV and films, people, even the documentaries, I think people don't recognize them in the same way as maybe other shows or things coming from other, media moguls and things like that. But I think the one thing about Curtis is he's going to keep doing what he's doing, and it's really up to the rest of the people to catch up to that, because he's so far ahead. Uh, and so I think like the fact that we did this book and everything shows that he's thinking in a different way.
Yeah, definitely, man. I look forward to that. Now I can ask you, how long does it typically take you to write a novel or screenwrite? Is it like does it vary drastically, or is it like you got like a formula, like a certain amount of time where you have to start and finish?
That's a good question. Sometimes I wish I could do it faster, but truthfully, it's anywhere from, I would say, 8 months to a year. I have written things faster than that because I've been on deadline. I had to write it faster than that. And sometimes I can do it. I did one book in 6 months. Um, but it depends what I start with. So if it's a project that, if I'm working with another writer and they've already done a good amount of work, then I can obviously take what they did, and yeah, it doesn't take me that long. But if I'm starting from like zero, like square one, then it's probably, I would say 6 months to a year. It'll take me, with the average being 8 months.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. Now I can ask you, are you working on anything else currently, or do you have any other upcoming projects?
Yeah. So I have, well, like I said, we're doing the second volume two of the Accomplice. I'm also working with another celebrity on a fiction book now, and then I completed uh, my novel. Is a standalone. It's inspired by the talented Mr. Ripley, but it's set in the world of hip hop. And so it's about basically sociopaths in the music industry. I've written about sociopaths in law enforcement, and I have a lot of friends who work in entertainment, and they tell me these wild stories about the people they encounter. And so I just sat down and I was like, it'd be interesting to have like a Tom Ripley character existing in that world. And so that book recently got sold. So hopefully uh, I'll have a date for that one. But as of now, it's a standalone. It is kind of open for a series, especially with all this Diddy stuff going on. I think there's a lot there that I could pull from if I do another one. But yeah, I'm excited about that one. And then I also wrote the third Trevor Finnegan book as well, which kind of puts the stamp on that series. So
Okay, okay, cool, man. That's truly amazing. I definitely look forward to what you got going on now and in the future as well. Now, for the viewers, if they want to keep up with what you're doing and follow you and show you support, what's the best way for them to do that? Social media, website,
sure. So you can hop on, go to www.aaronphilipclark.com, and you can join the mailing list. I am not as active as I should be, but I do send newsletters kind of every other month that just give kind of updates. But I definitely have updates on the website. So if people are interested in what's coming out or what I'm working on, they can visit me there. On social media, um, Twitter, or I guess X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me at Real APC Books. And then the handle is the same for Instagram as well. So at Real APC Books.
Okay, okay, cool. So I gotta thank you one more time. Like I said, I really appreciate you, stopping what you're doing to come by and talk to us about the amazing things that you're doing. And just keep up the great work, and thank you to the viewers for tuning in.
Oh, for sure. Thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So until next time, peace.
All right.